Some families feel warm without feeling close. There is laughter, shared meals, birthdays remembered. Nothing is obviously wrong. This is not conflict, neglect, or cruelty. It is quieter than that. A persistent sense of being slightly out of place. Listening more than speaking. Being present without being felt. The people who carry this move through life appearing functional. They show up, they contribute, they adapt. Yet inside, something essential is missing. A belonging that never fully arrives. This experience often lasts years, even decades. It rarely has a clear beginning or end. This is the psychology of people who feel like outsiders in their own homes. At first, this experience can be hard to name. It doesn't announce itself dramatically. There are no obvious villains, no defining incidents that explain everything. From the outside, the family may look stable, even loving. Conversations happen. Traditions continue. Roles are fulfilled, and yet beneath the routine there is a subtle sense of distance that never fully closes. Psychologists have long noticed that belonging is not created by proximity alone. You can share a roof and still feel unseen. You can know everyone's habits and still feel unknown. In these families, connection exists, but resonance does not. The words land, but they do not quite reach. Affection is present, but it feels generalized, not personal. Like warmth without contact. Often, the person who feels like an outsider cannot point to a single reason why. They may even resist the feeling, telling themselves they are being ungrateful, dramatic, or overly sensitive. After all, nothing terrible happened. No one was overtly rejected. In fact, many are told, explicitly or implicitly, that they are lucky, that this is what family is supposed to look like, and so the feeling stays quiet. Clinicians frequently see this pattern in people who learned early to read the room. They notice emotional weather shifts before anyone else does. They adjust their tone, their presence, their needs accordingly. Not because they were asked to, but because somewhere along the way, fitting in required adaptation. Belonging became conditional on subtle compliance. This is not about being unloved. That distinction matters. Many of these families care deeply for one another. They worry. They show up in crises. They do what families are meant to do. But caring and attunement are not the same thing. Attachment researchers often observe that a child can be safe and still feel alone, fed and clothed and protected, yet internally unmirrored. In these environments, difference is rarely punished. It is simply not absorbed. Emotional expressions that don't match the family's tone drift past unnoticed. Curiosity about the inner world remains surface level. Over time, the child learns that parts of themselves do not quite land, so they keep those parts quieter, smaller, more contained. What develops is not rebellion, but refinement. Jung described something similar when he wrote about adaptation becoming identity. The persona, originally meant to help us function socially, can quietly take over. In families where harmony is valued over depth, or stability over emotional complexity, this persona becomes especially polished. The child becomes the easy one, the low-maintenance one, the one who doesn't need much. From the outside, this looks like maturity. Inside, it feels like absence. Neuroscience suggests that the nervous system calibrates itself around what is consistently responded to. Expressions that are met with interest and recognition grow stronger. Those that are met with silence slowly recede. Over years, this shapes not only behavior, but self-perception. The person stops expecting to be fully known. They stop offering the parts that were never received. This is how someone can sit at a family table and feel invisible without anyone actively ignoring them. The paradox is that these individuals often become deeply attuned adults. They listen well. They notice subtleties others miss. They sense emotional undercurrents and respond with care. This sensitivity is not accidental. It was learned. It was necessary. And yet, it carries a quiet cost. Belonging, when delayed long enough, begins to feel theoretical, something other people seem to have access to, a language spoken fluently elsewhere. Even in adulthood, even in new relationships, there can be a lingering sense of being slightly peripheral, present, involved, appreciated, but never fully inside the circle. And because nothing was overtly wrong, the grief around this is often unrecognized. There is no clear loss to mourn, just a subtle ache that surfaces in moments of contrast. Watching other families interact, hearing someone speak freely without editing, noticing how easily some people take up emotional space. Winnicott wrote about the false self forming in environments where spontaneous expression isn't reliably met, not out of trauma, but out of adaptation. The false self keeps the peace. The true self waits quietly in the background, not dead, not damaged, just unused. For those who feel like outsiders in their own family, this waiting can stretch on for years, shaping relationships, expectations, and even the sense of what feels possible in connection. And often, it isn't until much later, in moments of unexpected recognition or sudden emotional resonance, that the question quietly forms, why does this feel so unfamiliar? Sometimes the realization arrives without warning. A conversation with a stranger that feels oddly intimate. A film scene that lands too hard. A moment where someone sees something small and specific and responds to it. The reaction can be disproportionate. Not overwhelming, but disorienting, as if something long dormant briefly wakes up. Not joy exactly, more like recognition. Psychologists often note that the nervous system responds not to intensity, but to attunement. It registers when it is being met. When another person notices not just what you do, but how you arrive. For someone who grew up adapting quietly, this can feel almost unreal. Like stepping into a room where the temperature is finally right after years of subtle cold, and then just as quietly, the old calibration returns. There is often guilt here, a strange loyalty to the family narrative. After all, they didn't mean to do this. They did their best. They were dealing with their own limitations, their own inherited patterns. To name the absence can feel like betrayal, as if acknowledging the gap somehow erases everything that was given. But emotional absence does not require blame to be real. Belonging, psychologists suggest, is not about being included. It is about being recognized. Inclusion can happen without intimacy. Recognition requires presence. It requires someone to register your internal state and respond to it as meaningful. In families where roles are stable and expectations are clear, this kind of recognition can quietly disappear, not out of neglect, but out of habit. Over time, the outsider learns to belong by usefulness, by harmony, by being low friction. They become experts at fitting into systems without disturbing them. They sense what is expected and deliver it. And because this works, because it keeps everything running smoothly, the pattern goes unquestioned. The shadow side emerges later. Clinicians frequently observe that these individuals struggle not with relationships, but with intimacy. They can be close without being known, connected without being seen, even loved without being understood. There is often a sense of performing normalcy while something essential remains untouched, protected perhaps, or simply unpracticed. Neuroscience suggests that early relational patterns shape how safe it feels to express complexity. If certain emotions were met with neutrality or confusion, the brain learns to downregulate them, not suppressing exactly, more like dimming the signal. Over time, the person may lose access to their own internal cues. They feel vaguely disconnected, not just from others, but from themselves. this disconnection is subtle. It doesn't feel like emptiness. It feels like distance. There is a particular loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who know you well, but not deeply, who can describe your habits, your preferences, your history, but not your interior weather. It is a loneliness that does not come from isolation, but from misalignment, from being slightly out of phase with the emotional rhythm around you. And because this was learned early, it feels normal. Jung might have called this a life lived too far on the outside, not in rebellion, but in accommodation, the self shaped around the expectations of the environment, rather than emerging freely within it. The cost is not dramatic, it is cumulative, a gradual narrowing of what feels expressible. As adults, these individuals often seek belonging in fragments, in moments, in work, creativity, or solitary pursuits, where there is no need to translate themselves. Or they become observers of closeness, intuitively understanding it, yet unsure how to step fully inside it. There can be a persistent sense of standing just outside the circle, even when invited in. What complicates this further is that families often remain emotionally consistent. They do not change simply because one person becomes more aware. The old roles quietly reassert themselves, the familiar dynamics return, and with them, the familiar feeling. Not rejection, not hostility, just the sense that something essential is still not being met. For many, the recognition of this pattern does not bring relief. It brings grief, not for what was done, but for what never happened, for the conversations that never went deeper, the questions that were never asked, the parts of the self that learned to stay silent because there was no place for them to land. This grief is rarely shared. It feels too subtle to explain, too abstract to justify, and so it remains internal, circulating quietly beneath the surface of everyday life. Winnicott believed that the true self only emerges where it is received, where it feels safe to exist without adaptation, without performance, without monitoring. For those who felt like outsiders at home, this receiving may come late, or intermittently, or not at all, and yet the longing for it persists, not as a demand, as a quiet question. What would it feel like to be known without having to translate yourself? That question often lingers beneath relationships, beneath achievements, beneath the appearance of a life that works. It doesn't ask for answers, it simply waits. And in that waiting, it reveals something essential. That the feeling of being an outsider was never about distance from others. It was about distance from a place where the self could fully arrive and be met.